This is the tree I call my Hornbeam Stumpy. And if you'd like to see how I transform this from a featureless 7-foot tall tree into this miniature bonsai in development, then keep watching. This tree is my Hornbeam Stumpy tree, and it was initially a tree which I found in the bargain section at the local garden centre, and I paid about £6 for it, and the tree at that point was 7 foot tall. I brought it home and I immediately reduced that down significantly to a stump of about 6 inches tall. I did that major trunk chop just above a bud. In winter, all the energy of a tree, all the stored sugars and starches, are held within the trunk and the upper portions of the roots, and in spring all that energy rushes back up the tree, out along the branches, and forces the buds to start opening and to produce leaves. By performing a severe cut or radical trunk chop in early spring, that forces the stored energy, when it rushes back up the tree, to start forming new branches and buds at the cut site. And that's exactly what I've done with the tree here. It was effectively a featureless stump, but that energy rushing up the tree caused it to put out new buds and new branches, and that is what has enabled me to develop the branching on the tree and to create the bonsai in training that you see in front of you now. The entire canopy of this tree has been rebuilt from almost nothing in 2 to 3 years. I did a diagonal cut on the trunk, which is just visible in here, which is healing up. There were a couple of little side shoots on the tree which are now formed into major side branches, and all the rest of this foliage I've grown over the last perhaps 2.5 growing seasons since making that trunk chop. To me, it's a great example of the fact that once you've got your trunk developed, you can regrow the branches and the foliage over a couple of seasons. My aim was to develop a stumpy little tree with significant taper, copying the example of Harry Harrington in his Bonsai Inspirations book. And in May of 2021, the stump had put out new buds, which were developing nicely. On fully uncovering the roots when repotted, it was discovered that what looked like promising root flare at the base of the tree was in fact a false nabari, and the main roots were significantly further down the trunk from that. So my plan at that point was then to put a tourniquet around the base of the tree where I wanted roots to form, and to transplant or replant that tree back into the soil with the aim of ground layering. And the purpose of that is to move the root plane further up the trunk so that I've got a shorter tree, and then the lower root plane can be removed. Ground layering, like air layering, is a technique that allows us to determine where the roots of our trees form. Where a trunk is too long, for example, we can apply a tourniquet and bury the trunk beneath the soil. The aim is to encourage roots at the site of the tourniquet, and then the lower portion of the tree can then be separated, resulting in a much shorter tree. Some people will plant a tree through a tile or a CD to accomplish the same results. With the growth of the trunk, the cambium is damaged, preventing downward flow of nutrients, which causes root growth at the site of the tourniquet. We're now at the end of September, and we've got quite a lot of foliage on there, some long extending branches which have been feeding energy into the tree, but those have served their purpose now, and so it's time to trim those back. It's now late September 2023, and you can see that the tree is fully in leaf and has got some quite long extended growth. I've left that to help push energy into the tree and develop the thickness of that trunk, and also try and promote that root growth that I'm after. These long extended shoots now have served their purpose. I need to reduce that back quite significantly, because what I don't want to do is I don't early next year want the tree to be putting energy and expending energy on these branches which aren't part of the final design anyway. So what I'm planning to do is go around the tree and shorten back all of this extended growth, and we'll be able to see better the profile of the tree then, and perhaps at that point it's time to think about wiring the tree. There's no great art or artistry to what I'm doing here. I'm just going around and I'm just pruning this long extending growth back so I can begin to see the structure of the tree better. I'm treating this exercise via directional pruning, so deciding which side of the growth I want to keep a bud. Hornbeams, like beech, grow with opposing leaves, and so if I were to cut at this point, I would get the branch to continue out in that direction, and if I was to cut below this point, I would get the branch to come out in that direction. So I'm just bearing that in mind as I go around the tree trimming. You can see as that we're approaching autumn. I'm now getting some dead and dry leaves on there. I'm not trying to be particularly scientific or precise about this at this stage. It's just really about ensuring the tree doesn't get out of control, and that in spring of next year it's not putting energy into growth and development that's not required in the final finished design. And we're going to get rid of this long extending growth up here and trim that. Quite hard back, so I've got a huge long shoot there that I've removed, and there's a couple more further down where I'm doing the same. And hornbeam will tolerate quite hard pruning. At this point I've got this long extending growth coming out here. I've also got another branch which is forming and running almost parallel underneath that, and what I can do is when I come to wire, I can just wire that out to the side, so I get more of a sort of V-shaped junction rather than two branches immediately underneath each other. I'm just going to trim that back a little, and also the branch above. So there you have it. I've been around the tree and I just trim back the growth on there just to try and keep the tree under control. My plan now is to minimally apply some wiring just to perhaps bring some of those branches down and also position a couple of those. But I'm thinking that it may be better to do that once the leaves have dropped and I can see the structure of the tree better. So here's the tree from above, having been pruned. I've cut back all that extending growth, and the tree will be left now into spring of next year. All of this branching has been developed subsequent to the major trunk chop, and you can see the trunk chop in there, and the cambium is rolling in on that and healing up quite nicely. And you can see we've got the beginnings of ramification branches and secondary branches on there. And I just need to refine that and position those going forward. Let me know what you think of the tree, and if you've got anything similar or what you may have done differently with this tree. If you enjoyed that, then please consider subscribing and hit the like button. If you enjoyed that video and want to boost your bonsai development, then you need to check out one of these two videos next.